So balancing the budget to me means also planning for the debt that we have to reduce, not just our budget. But in addition to that $13 trillion, there are all the entitlements that are out there. The Social Security, which this question addresses. So we have a huge problem. The most important thing is to get our economy going. We can't hardly solve any problems unless we get our economy going. That's the priority, to get the economy going. We also are probably going to have to, I'm not sure about this, but we're probably going to have to eventually start extending the age of retirements for Social Security. That's already begun, and it'll probably have to happen some more. It's a huge, serious problem that we have allowed, basically, our country to come down that road. And, you know, part of it's the entitlement mentality that so many of our people have. We need to start right away with, at least for the younger people, with private investments for their retirement. And that can also help. But this is absolutely a huge problem, and there's no single answer for it.
Thank you. Hank, you want to hang on to that? We're going to come back this way. What would be your plan for making Medicare solvent so that it would be available for future generations?
What I just said. It's obviously part of the same thing. The unfunded entitlements right now, actually, I think are somewhere around $100 trillion. So, it even dwarfs our national debt. And as has been mentioned before, the interest on our debt is growing almost to the point where our gross domestic product is. First thing is we got to get the economy going. It's number one.
Thanks again. Okay, you ready?
I'm ready.
Arizona believes it has constitutional authority to enact its new immigration law. What say you?
Well, they absolutely do, and all they're doing is, I've read the law, and it's almost an identical mirror of the federal statute. So they're well within their means, and I always say to people, gee, when I go to the doctor, I've got to show my license. I go to Costco, I've got to show my card. I go to the airport, I've got to show my passport. I go to a foreign country, I've got to surrender my passport to the hotel. What's the big deal with showing ID to identify whether or not you're here or not? I think it's ridiculous that they're making a big deal. Arizona is definitely within their limits, and as been said already by somebody else, it is their obligation to provide a law-abiding society so their people can function. And that is the obligation of the government of a particular state. And that's what they need to do, and that's what they're doing, and my hat's off to them.
Mr. Didier, with respect to multinational issues, what do you see as the role of the U.S. versus the role of the UN?
I got this question before. Again, I want the U.S. out of the UN and the UN out of the U.S. Now, we are a sovereign nation. I don't know why we're trying to align ourselves and lose our sovereignty to other nations. This doesn't work for me. It doesn't work for this Constitution right here. So we need to become a sovereign nation again. We don't relinquish anything to the UN. The Small Arms Treaty, no way. And I would encourage each and every one of you to be calling your Senator, Patty Murray and Cantwell, and telling them no on that dang vote when that treaty comes to them. But we're a sovereign nation. And we stay a sovereign nation. And there's nothing there for the UN that can help us out. We do need to build up our military so that we become that force. If you go online and look up where our Navy is at today, it's depleted about down to nothing. We don't have too many ships left anymore. And that's our mobile force. We do have 170 bases around the world. Maybe more than we need. We do have some bases out there for dispersing our troops. But a lot of those bases could probably be brought home to secure our borders using our military, because in 2007, we used our military on the border for 1 month. And there was no drugs and no people, nothing across the border. We don't need a fence. All we need is a 1 mile swath through there and let our military train. Because a lot of the conflicts that are happening today that we're involved in, that we didn't follow the Constitution, are in deserts. So it'd be a perfect training area, and there would be nobody crossing the border. And we need them on the north border too.
Next question. What is your position with regard to the confiscation of and the redistribution of wealth in this country?
I support freedom, the economic freedom that's embedded in the Declaration and the Constitution. Free economics, Austrian school economics. The market is self-balancing. It always corrects. It might be a little slower. People get anxious and want to pass legislation, but it works. It's proven to work time and time again. Let it work. Does that answer the question?
Ask the audience. Ready?
Yes, sir.
What should our policy be with regard to North Korea's nuclear weapons?
That's an interesting question. We have to protect our country first, and that's our obligation. It's always to defend our country, whatever that requires. I think sanctions are effective on North Korea. They can't do much. They don't produce much there. I think sanctions have been an effective tool. I think that's one tool you have to utilize. But our job is always to secure the rights of the people and defend our borders and defend ourselves from enemies.
Next question. Do you believe that regulation of health care insurance is a states' rights issue? And if so, why?
Regulation of insurance is a states' rights issue. Well, one of the things that I'm for in terms of the healthcare debate is interstate commerce in healthcare. I think that's one of the few things that you could actually apply the interstate commerce clause to. So I believe that that is probably not a states' rights issue per se.
Okay.
We have had, one of the problems that we have with healthcare now is that the individual states have erected barriers around the individual insurance companies, limiting competition in the marketplace and protecting a select handful of large companies at the expense of the other companies that would like to compete and the consumers in that market. That's one of the things that we have to change with the recently passed healthcare legislation, and one of the things I support in a repeal and replace.
Thank you. Do you favor or oppose annual zero baseline budgeting?
As I kind of go along with a balanced budget, doesn't it? We have to spend only what we bring in. We have to go back to our constitutional limits on the government. There would be less spending. If I understand the annual baseline budgeting question, it's that, first off, Congress is working on a cash basis, which is a terrible way to do it. It's not taking into account well, the difference between the cash is we pay what we owe right now this year in 2010. An accrual system, which most corporations use, says, hey, we're going to owe in 2011 and 2012 and 2013, we're going to owe these additional things. So we're not projecting, Congress is not projecting what it's going to owe in future years. That's why unfunded liabilities is going to kill us. I believe it's $109 trillion right now. We made obligations for it which you can't meet. So the zero baseline budgeting, we need to get control of what we bring in. We don't spend any more than that. In fact, we have to spend less so we can pay down the debt. Okay, period.
Okay, Mr. Burke, do you believe in term limits? If not, how many terms would you want to serve?
Well, let me ask the audience a rhetorical question. Do you think in a free society you have the right to vote for whoever you want to vote for? Then you're against term limits. You are, because there are people in Congress that are part of the solution. Jim DeMint, Michelle Bachmann, Mike Pence, other people that understand the role of limited government, understand and adhere to the Constitution, you would have to vote every one of those people out of office. And I guarantee you, you will not be able to find better people to replace them with. I totally understand the need for term limits, but term limits, I don't believe, would have been something the Founding Fathers would have agreed with, because it takes away your right to vote for whoever you want to vote for. Term limits were meant to be imposed by an educated citizenry. That's us. It's our job to impose term limits by throwing the bums out. And as far as how long would I serve, I would serve as long as I feel like I am adding to bringing the country back to its limited role of individual freedoms and responsibilities, free markets, and getting the Constitution back to its limited constitutional role, and the government back to its constitutional role.
All right, hang on to that microphone.
And if I mess up, you should vote me the hell out.
I know, back, we're going to start all over again. Mr. Burke gets another.
Sorry, I keep forgetting that.
Do you agree that once the earmarked project is completed, the earmarked recipients must submit into an official government website a project summary that shows an actual versus budgeted accounting of how taxpayers' resources were used?
Yes, but I prefer eliminating all earmarks. I was actually very disappointed in the Republican Party leadership because they agreed to a one-year moratorium on earmarks. Why a 1 year? Why not just make it permanent? I think earmarks are a cancer in the system. When you add them all up, they don't amount to very much in the eternal scheme of things, but what they do is persuade congressmen, senators to vote for things that they otherwise may not vote for. It's a cancer in the system, and it must be cut out. No more earmarks.
There are those who believe that Sharia law should replace the Constitution. What do you say? Sharia law.
Oh, Sharia.
Sharia. Forgive me.
Well, first off, that's why we have amendments to the Constitution. So I guess if we wanted to have Sharia law, we could amend the Constitution to have Sharia law. How about that, right? I'm not in favor of Sharia law. I've worked over in Iraq and I worked in Pakistan. It's given me an opportunity to meet the people over there, a lot of Muslims. I understand the religion a little bit better than I used to, and I have an appreciation for who they are as a people, and I have a little more appreciation for Sharia law. But it's, first off, Sharia law, we shouldn't allow Sharia law because it goes against the Constitution. Okay, you have a right, First Amendment, to freedom of religion. So if you want to be free, you want to be a Muslim, you want to be a Hindu, you want to be a Christian, you want to be Catholic, great, who cares? It's your business, that's your business, that's your right. Sharia law says that the separation, which there is no separation of church and state, but the one part in the First Amendment Constitution says that the country will have no national church. That's what was the intent. Well, Sharia law would be a national church because it's a church-based law. So absolutely, I mean, the only way that can ever happen, I hope, is that we would have to amend the Constitution, and I don't think that would ever happen, but I'm absolutely opposed to it.
Thank you.
We're a country that, I agree with you, we are a Christian country, but we are a Christian that has a country that has allowed religious tolerance, which allows us all to be free and to live and let live, and that's a very important concept. Okay, we as Christians should be free to have religion, not freedom from religion. Freedom, you've heard that before. Freedom to have a religion, and so I agree. We are a Christian country, and our values and our Constitution is based upon that. So I don't believe for a moment that we should. Get my timer. We should go away from an understanding of who we are and where we came from, no matter what religious preference you come from. But we need to protect the rights of everyone to have freedom of religion.
Okay. Next question. Do you believe that congressional members should certify that neither they nor their spouses, their family members, nor any of their staff members or their staff members' families would benefit financially from approval of the earmark request?
So, again, I'm against earmarks.
So no one gets a piece of the action. That's fine with me. Hey, it's your time. Yeah, it works.
Wait a minute, we're going to vote here, no more earmark questions.
No more, you're all hating on me? Well, that's great. That knocks off about a half hour here. All right, next question. Do you favor or oppose legislation that would require recipients of earmarked funding? Well, okay, there goes that question.
Well, go ahead, ask the question.
Hang on, I'll find one that you'll like. In fact, we're out of questions. We're ready for the speed.
You can ask that question if you want.
You want to answer that question? Do you support legislation that would require disclosure of fundraisers sponsored by earmarked beneficiaries and their lobbyists and contributions by them?
If we had earmarks, yes, I would favor disclosure, but I'm opposed to earmarks.
Okay.
So, but if you had them, the answer to the question is, if they continue to exist, the answer is yes.
Okay. Thank you. We're a little ahead of schedule right now, and what we should do is, I think, we'll do a speed round here and then take a break. How's that? Huh? You guys got your paddles ready? These deal with national security and armed services, okay? Yes or no? Do you support our allies in Europe and Asia to assume complete responsibility for their own national defense? Do you support the extension of Miranda rights to enemy combatants captured on the battlefield? No. Do you support the extension? Oh no, we just did that one. Wait a minute. Do you support the extension of Miranda rights and legal counsel to foreign nationals attempting to commit terrorist acts within U.S. borders? Do you support keeping Gitmo Bay detention facilities open? Do you support those held at Guantanamo Bay detention facilities to be tried in military courts? Do you agree with Obama's decision to cancel the development of the next generation rocket that would make us dependent on the Russians to service the International Space Station? Do you agree with President Obama's decision to cancel our commitment to build a missile shield in Poland or Czechoslovakia? And does that decision compromise our national defense and the defense of our allies in Europe? Want that one again? Do you agree with President Obama's decision to cancel our commitment to build a missile shield in Poland and Czechoslovakia? That works? Okay. Next question. Do you support the World Court in its role to charge and prosecute American soldiers for alleged war crimes? No. Two more questions, gentlemen. Do you believe the President should meet with renegade countries such as Iran, North Korea, and Venezuela without any preconditions? Do you believe this administration has reduced our national security by attacking CIA employees, giving away interrogation techniques, and calling terrorism a man-made event? I think what we're going to do here, boys and girls, is take about a 15-minute break. How's that?